Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Perth to Paisley Podcast, a podcast dedicated to Heart of Midlothian Football Club. The Jambos got back to winning ways in the Scottish Premiership, courtesy of a 3-0 victory over Livingston at Tynecastle. And here to chat with me, Adam Kennedy, all about the men in maroon, is Mr. Daniel McIver. McIver, how are we?
I'm doing fantastic. However, I don't know what this is because it's no longer the Perth to Paisley podcast. It's now the Cami Devlin fan podcast. That's what it now needs to be renamed as. I said it last week and people on Twitter mocked me. People on Twitter said, oh, look, it's Daniel. It's Daniel doing his usual of loving a player before they've done absolutely anything. This weekend will be the real test. This weekend will be proving how he's actually going to do under the big lights of Tynecastle, full house and everything. And then he was incredible. So I want apologies from you. I want written apologies from people on Twitter. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just wondering, under the big lights at 3 o'clock on a September afternoon.
The lights were on. It was dark. It was grey. It's fine. He was shining a light on how incredible he is as a footballer.
To be fair, I think his gnashers were probably shining. How often did he smile? I think he's the happiest player to ever actually play.
Him and Taylor Moore is a ridiculous combination of just buzzing.
Actually, that's funny. Before we kind of get into talking about sort of around the grounds and, you know, the highlights of the game, I think this is very emblematic of where we are.
He's done it, lads. He's got the right word this week.
But how nice is it to have players that, this sounds over the top already, we're only 2 minutes in, that actually genuinely want to be here or look as though they want to play for Hearts now? Like, how long have we actually waited for, you know, I don't want to say an 11 that care, because I'd probably even say a squad generally, that the vast majority look as though they care.
Everybody just seems buzzing. Everybody seems happy. They all seem to get on. They're all having a laugh. Cami Devlin's made it very clear in press conferences that he's been going out with coffees with everybody, getting to know everybody. Him and Benny are already best mates, and Taylor Moore and Alex Cochrane as well. You saw that in Cochrane's celebration. Devlin ran and picked him up and just kind of went, yes, to everybody. They're all just delighted to be here, and I think everybody's delighted to have it.
I can remember us calling an episode earlier on in the season, Bromance Brewing, when we were talking about Gino and GMS. I mean, that midfield duo, they look as though they're, you know, in terms of bromances, that's up there with like Scatchell and Hartley.
Right, wait, hold on. Hold on. You accuse me every week of getting ahead of myself. And now you're arguably comparing them to the best midfield two we've ever seen.
Well, one of them is the greatest footballer that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So all Cami Devlin's got to do is be decidedly average or better, doesn't he? Really.
But we are literally 2.5 minutes in, and I think that's the most spurious claim that has ever been made on this podcast.
Gotta love a bit of controversy on the Perth to Paisley podcast. That's why we keep churning them out. No, of course we are going to touch on the win over Livingston, but I mean, what a week for us to go around the grounds. We absolutely have to. So the 3 Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs were pretty uninspiring, actually, when you look at the Sunday games. Obviously, we had Rangers winning 1-0 against Dundee at Dens, courtesy of a Joe Aribo goal, despite Jason Cummings' missed penalty. The chance, obviously, for the D to equalise, didn't take it, and Rangers shut them out eventually. Obviously, our win over Livingston, coupled with our opponent's next week winning, rather, at home to Ross County. Motherwell getting the better of the Staggies by 2-1, courtesy of a late winner from Tony Watt, who I've got the fear about, but we'll talk about that later on. But Sunday, absolutely tremendous shithousery from all corners of the country. We had the lunchtime kickoff in Paisley as St Mirren claimed their first league win of the season against 10-man Aberdeen, going 1-0 up, falling 2-1 behind, eventually getting the better of the Dons 3-2. Absolutely stupendous scenes in Paisley, and I never thought I'd be delighted to see St Mirren win, but here we are. And yeah, the 3 PMs, Celtic being held at home by Dundee United was a fantastic highlight, particularly as I'm working away on Sunday, listening to Sports Sound. That's the commentary game, and come full time, the boos are ringing round Parkhead, just hilarious. And Hibs beats St Johnstone 1-0, nobody really cares. So what did you make of Irwin, obviously, we'll touch on later on, but the other 5 fixtures, because there's action everywhere and shithousery on end. What did you make of it?
It was a bit of a mental weekend in regards to stuff like that. The big thing from our day, I've only seen the goal that Rangers scored and then the missed penalty that Dundee had. It's still, Rangers clearly aren't yet fit and firing where they were last season. Again, I said this, we're back in the league and they start dropping off. It's like, it's a thing.
To come to tiny. And I suppose they'll probably do their usual beat us at Ibrox fairly comfortably. Yeah. But that Tynecastle game, that could be very interesting.
Exactly.
What about Agent Cumdog's miss, though?
I don't know what he's like. It's such a weird penalty because he looked really confident going up to take it, but then his run up, as soon as he started running, I was like, "Oh, you're missing this! Like, there's no chance of scoring this." So yeah, that would have been great. Obviously, we would have went tied top of the league if Dundee had managed to score. Motherwell worry me. Yeah, Motherwell really worry me just now. They look fantastic. Obviously, the reason that I'm worried by them is because they are opponents next week. But that kind of spawny attitude to be able to keep going to the final whistle, manage to get a point, all 3 points. Sorry, Tony Watt is in like career best form just now.
Really good, doesn't he?
He does. He looks like the player we were promised, basically, and never got.
I think or rather us and the 20 other clubs that he's previously played for were promised.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, seems to have found a home at Motherwell. And it's funny that you obviously talked about, them grinding out the win in essence. Graham Alexander even said afterwards that they weren't particularly at their best, which again is quite worrying in the hope that are they saving a decent performance for the big clash at Tynecastle at the weekend, but only time will tell, I suppose.
It says a lot as well if you're not at your best and still winning games. Like,
yeah, totally.
That shows you. Speaking about that, I guess the next day, Hibs, what is it with them just getting ridiculous penalties every single week? Like, it's just not a penalty in any way, shape, or form.
I have to say, Jamie McCart's sending off was hilarious. I take it you've seen what the second booking was for.
Yes. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Tremendous. It's just, I don't know. Them finally ending their hoodoo over St Johnstone as well, because I couldn't believe that they hadn't beaten Saints at home since 2012.
Yeah.
What a stat that is.
I know.
Obviously now that's over, so.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's just, I said it 2 weeks ago, the Edinburgh Cubs just seem to be back this year for the first time in like a decade at least, like a decade and a half pushing it. So yeah, we both look really good. The bigger 2 games, however, were St Mirren Aberdeen, and the Stephen Glass Scott Brown experiment I tweeted is going exactly how everybody predicted it. It's just being a calamity. Stephen Glass in his press conferences is losing his mind at times, where he's just not.
He's getting very angry, isn't he?
He's so angry
with questions that they're getting chucked at him. But there's a part of me that thinks, is he sort of using this frustration? Like, don't take it out on the journalists just trying to do their job. Like, why? It's their worst run, I think, since 2010. Mm-hmm. So he'll be fully aware of the supposed expectations at Aberdeen. I don't know why it's not working out. I mean, I'm a big fan of it not working out, but
I think it's just because why did they appoint him? Like, what had he shown ever to show that he could continue Aberdeen's expected position?
But the Atlanta link, I mean, it was all working out so well.
Of course, I forgot. But yeah, obviously, I'm not chuffed that St Mirren won, but I'm chuffed in the vacuum that St Mirren won. Like, in the context of that, I will say, David Bates, I'm delighted we didn't buy him because he looks atrocious every time I've seen him this season.
It's funny you say that because I was sort of wanting that signing to happen, and yet I'm sort of with you. It's not been an ideal start, and I know that his Hamburg career didn't exactly work out, but even then, that was a weird move in the first place anyway. So, and also, I mean, I mentioned Stevie May last week. A massive fan of shite Aberdeen strikers scoring the winners against them that Derek McInnes has signed, he will be looking at that Aberdeen team absolutely pissing his pants that the fans wanted rid of McInnes. And they just look even worse. It's actually sensational. That's coupled with Hearts' decent recent form. That has easily been my highlight of the season so far, without question.
And then finally, Celtic becoming a mid-table side in front of our eyes.
I say that, yeah. Maybe I said that a bit too soon.
It's just crazy. Goodness. Like Ian Harkes takes his goal really well. Like he's in the right place at the right time, kind of thing. But it's more for me the comments made by Postecoglou after the game, where he was like, "Yes, the result wasn't there, but the way we played and the style of football is exactly what fans want to see." And the fact that media scrutiny hasn't followed him in the same way that Kashina, it happened to him, it happened to Stendhal with us, it happened to Cathro in terms of how he was different. It's just weird that, I mean, it's weird in terms of it shouldn't be happening. I know why it's happening, but it's ridiculous that he's getting away with this. Because he's got like a 43% loss record currently.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I think, this sounds a bit bizarre, I think the media have used up their kind of, I don't want to say slagging allocation, but when Celtic crashed out the Champions League, that was kind of the big one, wasn't it? Or, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say Champions League, but then I wondered, did they crash out the Europa? But then I remember they're in the Europa groups.
Yeah.
Him coming out and saying about the weird expectations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to say that they're papering over cracks, but you get where I'm coming from. Like when you have a go at the club's expectations, like you're at Celtic, you spent what, 12 million? I think I saw,
yeah.
And yet, they're what, sixth, chasing down United, Motherwell, Hearts, and Hibs.
They're already 6 behind Rangers, all games played. That's insane. Like, that's mental. And when Postecoglou was like, "Oh, you guys are a bit weird here," where like you call the league after 7 games, it's like, I know no one is. Obviously, we've seen Celtic overturn higher points totals than that and went on to win the league against Rangers. The season that kind of springs to mind is 10-11 for me, where they were like 9 or 10 points behind Rangers.
But it's obviously a stuttering start, to say the
least. But it's a weird thing for the manager of Celtic to say, because it's like, but you need to understand the pressure that you're under and the expectation. We speak about it all the time, like the expectation that Hearts fans has of Hearts players, and that for years we've felt that the players didn't reciprocate that, and the management staff potentially didn't reciprocate that as well. Postecoglou doesn't seem to get that, and that's the worst thing that could happen for him.
Yeah, it's just mental. I mean, even watching the highlights. Having said that, I was going to touch on the Celtic highlights. Did you see Ajeti's miss?
Oh, for like 3. It's like Gary Mackay-Stevens.
And I mean, they must have hit the bar about 3 times. Mm-hmm. Like, I know they dominated the game, but you still need to pick up these results, and that's ultimately what he's
failed. And at home as well, where that was kind of his safety blanket, where it was like they were doing badly at home, but they would
a goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, mental. But never mind all that other nonsense, because we are, of course, going to talk about Heart and Midlothian Football Club. It's just so nice to be positive with Hearts. I've missed this feeling. It's great. And I know that it'll fade. We've got 20 years of supporting this club. We know exactly what it's like. They paint you a lovely little picture to start the season. Something goes wrong, then several things go wrong, and then we might pick up toward the end of the season, which gets you then excited for the next season, etc., etc., etc. But, of course, I'm not going to try and be negative this pod. I am going to try and put as positive a spin as I can on it, because let's face it, we are in a good place. Obviously, our last match prior to Livingston was the draw in Dingwall up in the Highlands against Ross County. Hearts did make 3 changes from a side that were held in the Highlands as a result. One of those enforced through injury, with John Suter dropping out. Gary Mackay-Stevens and Armand Nondoué also made way for Michael Smith and Alex Cochrane to return. Cami Devlin making his first Hearts start and his Tynecastle debut, as we resorted back to the 3-4-3 that you were certainly crying out for, McIver. What did you make of the team in full?
Definitely. That was the biggest thing for me. It was 3-4-3's back, so I'm a lot more confident. But additionally, I panicked when I saw Suter wasn't in the squad at all, because in my head, I was like, the only way that can be happening is he's hurt. And obviously it has come out that he is hurt, but it's just a niggle and that he's going to be back for this weekend against Motherwell. And in my head, though, I was like, this is the biggest test in terms of the squad and the starting 11 who have started, because they're missing arguably the best outfield player. You can make, there's 4 or 5 this season so far that you could say have been the best. But in terms of what he brings to others around him, you could argue Suter's the most important, because
we saw that last season, didn't we?
Exactly. When Suter came back in, we just looked a different side. And Suter's been so influential for us this season. So naturally, you kind of panic a wee bit. However, we're going to get into it more and speak generally. However, I said this on Twitter, and I said it to you before we started recording. I cannot remember the last time I was in attendance physically in the top flight of Scottish football and seen us play that well. It is the best performance. And I say that as if like we played better than that in the Championship. I think the 6-2 against Dundee, both 4-0s against Raith, the 6-0 at home against Alloa, all of them weren't as good as this weekend. I think it's the best game of football we have had in genuinely, I can't even give an example of like the last time.
I've actually got, and I don't know whether this is because we play them this weekend and they're at the kind of the forefront of my mind and whatnot. I've got the 6-0 against Motherwell in my head with regards to
where June nutmegged a guy for a penalty and Patterson just stood like that after he did it. That's
Arno Jim's freestyling down in the corner, busts a little Ronaldo chop and then gets swiped by the Motherwell scumbag, who I can't even recall who it was.
That genuinely, right, might be that. I remember it because it was snowing. I really remember that game.
That's right.
That genuinely might be it. When was that? 2017?
I'm trying to think. I think that was 16-17, yeah.
Like,
is that right?
It's around that time, so it's been at least 4 years.
It's the Puma kit, if that's any consolation.
Yeah.
I can remember that game very well. And again, I don't know whether that's just because the well are, like I say, on my mind and the stress of the weekend. But of course, if we go through the team, in full, Craig Gordon in goal, back three of Taylor Moore, Craig Halkett and Stephen Kingsley, Michael Smith and Alex Cochrane at wing backs, Cami Devlin and the greatest footballer I've ever seen were in the middle of the park, with Barry Mackay and Ben Woodburn supporting Liam Boyce in attack. In terms of, the first 11, we've obviously mentioned that John Suter would be in there. What else were you particularly surprised by? Because we both called for Gary Mackay-Steven to be dropped. We obviously saw that. And it's fair to say that we kind of reaped the rewards as a result. Yeah,
definitely. I don't know if I was surprised by GMS's lack of inclusion, but I was delighted with it. I was probably quite surprised that Devlin started, because I watched his press conference during the week and he made a point of saying, he was like, he'd never really heard of double sessions in training when he was in Australia and New Zealand. He played in the Olympics during the summer, so he didn't really have any time off. He spoke about the fact that when he was in Tokyo, that the Olympics would happen during the day, then at night, that was our day. So he was staying awake to get contract talk sorted and trying to be on the phone to us and see what's happening.
Fair play to Hearts for obviously taking advantage of his fatigue and getting him to sign. Exactly. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, exactly. Andy just generally said that, and a few people have said this to us on Twitter as well, that Australians and kind of people coming from that part of the world take a wee bit of time normally to get used to the step up in the intensity of the Scottish game generally, both physically and just the speed of it. So when Devlin started, I was thinking that's potentially a risk, but I was like, it'll get taken off in like the 65th minute for Haring. It's all right. I definitely did not expect him to have the game he had, which we'll get into, but B, to last the full 90 was incredibly impressive. And the fact that he didn't look tired after it. He was still going for it and really going through it. I think Benny as well. I don't think Benny's had a bad game for us yet, but I think Benny's worst game was last weekend against Ross County. And it was noticeable when Devlin came on in Dingwall that it gave Benny just that bit of support. It allowed him to relax a bit more.
I was going to say, sorry. In fairness, Benny was essentially playing at centre mid on his own.
Yeah, he was.
And I know that I've joked and said that he is good enough. I mean, he is the greatest footballer I've ever seen. I'll continue to find
But
that.
you had to mark 3 people.
Yeah, there's only so much that a man can take on.
Yeah. But that was the thing. Devlin just immediately, you could tell. I think Haring would have done the exact same thing, by the way. I'm not just being like Devlin is the reason Benny played so well. I think just having that partner, it allows Benny to just basically be 2 players.
Well, I sort of said before we came on air that I had something to ask you. You are one of the biggest Peter Haring fans that I know.
And I was worried this was going to come up.
This is the perfect reason to drop this question in now. What does this mean for Big Pete? Because I like having Haring in the squad. I think the versatility with him initially having signed as a centre half, obviously then being put into midfield, I like him as a bench option in order to fill in either of those gaps. And with Beningame and Devlin, I feel now we've got a midfield partnership that we can build, improve. And look, they're not going to stick around forever, but ultimately Hearts should be looking to take in young guys, give them a platform to play and impress, attract that attention and sell them on for profit, which we can do with Beningame and Devlin. We can't with Big Pete, in my opinion, but I do love having him here. And I think he's a decent squad option. But I want to gain your thoughts because obviously you love that man more than pretty much anyone I know.
Adam, he walked straight down the tunnel at the end of the game. He wasn't clapping anybody. He just turned around and went back down. Cami Devlin was the last man to stay on the. He was stayed on the pitch.
And he'd have got a standing ovation.
He did. I'm in the new stand, and he was the last guy out. Benny was halfway there. Benny, I think, was one of the first people as well, actually, to go down. But he got a massive round of applause. But Devlin was waiting there, and he was the last person, and he just looked in awe of everything. But Haring just went straight down the tunnel, and it's panicked me. I'm scared. Because
deal's up come the end of the year as well, isn't it?
I know. I desperately hope we give him an extension. I desperately hope. I want a 2-year deal because I agree with you, right? I think because this is the harsh thing with him. I said this the other week, and Craig Fowler and stuff like that's been saying it as well. I hate Benny and Haring so far this season have been the best centre mid duo outside the old firm. But Devlin's game was so good. It was like, oh, well, now this is the starting 2. And it's so harsh on Pete because he's been really good this season. But
decent servant to us as well through some shit times.
Yeah,
and I know that we've obviously repaid the favour by, seeing him through his injury and whatnot. But
he's been one of 2 bright sparks in the last 4 years, and the other one's named Michael Smith. That's been it. Because obviously, Suter's been here, but he's been hurt for the majority of that time. I know Haring has as well.
Funny how we always hark back to those 3, though. I was just thinking that. I thought I'd be inclined to chuck John Suter in, but then if he's been struggling with injury and whatnot.
And I know Haring has as well. I know that he was out for so long, but he was so, he had more game time than Suter has had. But it all comes down to me. I think we'd be ridiculous not to offer him a deal. For me, he's arguably, apart from maybe Smith, he's been my favourite player the last decade for us. I love that man.
You do proper love.
I love that man so much. But I worry that he might go, I don't want to just be a bench option because he's good enough to start in every other team in this league.
And this is the thing, that's what I was going to say. It's understandable that you couldn't fault him if that were the case. Not. And I don't want to say it's a sacrifice, but ultimately, if he's looking at the bigger picture, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for us. And it's quite sad to say because I love Big Pete as well. But I think
I disagree with that. I think it would be a disaster for us if he leaves because I think it would be very hard. That it would be incredibly hard to replace Peter Haring. Devlin is obviously coming and been fantastic. I'm in love with him, right? But I will say we have only had 1 game. What if Devlin gets hurt? What if Devlin gets hurt for?
Wait, hold on a second. Are you actually using some form of realism rather than getting carried away?
No, I'm not saying about ability. Cami Devlin's better than Benny Beningame, right? I'm saying this now, right?
How dare you?
I'm saying this
now.
You? What I mean is
absolute nonsense.
What if he breaks his leg next week and then he's out for however long? It's then Big Pete will be playing every single week and we'll need him.
Oh my my God, you just tempted fate. See, if he goes down against Motherwell, you're getting the blame for that.
Hey, you said last week I tempted fate that he'd be rubbish. He then put on one of the greatest games I've ever seen for a Hearts player. So now I think he's going to, he'll come out with 4 legs because I've said he might break one and he'll just be run the boot everywhere as he already was doing.
Just off to find a replacement like that.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, look, it's early, but it's encouraging.
Yes.
If we talk about the 90 as a whole, I'm always a big advocate for Hearts getting off to a flying start. Was that the case Saturday in your eyes?
I wouldn't say a flying start, but I've disagreed with a lot of people who have said, oh, it was a bad opening 20. I disagree with that. I think it was just a patient opening 20. I think we were waiting to see what Livingston were going to do. I think there was an expectation that they potentially were going to be like what they did against Celtic, where they were allowing Celtic a lot of the ball in Celtic's half and in the first third. And then as soon as Celtic entered their final third, they would press and really try and focus on the counter-attacks, but not just by punting a long ball. They kind of managed to play it through the channels. Jason Holt was really effective in their game against Celtic. And I think that's what they wanted to do against us. So I think Laurie Dunsire, a friend of the show and obviously Hearts TV commentator, he tweeted that after the game. He was saying that it was a great game, amazing, but he disagreed with the people. There was genuinely some almost booing in the first 20 minutes. Majority of it was just kind of that noise whenever. It happened a lot when Benny played a pass backwards to either Halkett, Moore or Kingsley. And I was just kind of going, it's 19 minutes in, go and calm down a wee bit. We're getting there. Livingston never once looked like they were going to score, ever.
No, they didn't. They set out their stall, didn't they? And I think it's probably just a lack of patience thing amongst Hearts fans, which, is a common occurrence. Everybody knows that if we don't get the fast start that I and many others crave, the crowd are very quick to turn on the 11 that are wearing maroon on the park. But you mentioned the opening 20. Hearts would take the lead on 25 minutes. Lovely drop of the shoulder from Barry Mackay and a pretty decent weighted ball to the back stick. Alex Cochrane, a calm volley back to his wing-back partner, who I have absolutely no idea why Michael Smith is floating in that vicinity, generally.
I do.
But smashes home with his supposed weaker left foot. Fantastic strike, great goal. And the one thought that I had in my head was, having seen that Michael Smith opened the scoring for Hearts, is I beg that my podcast co-host did not chuck money on Michael Smith to open the scoring, as he so often does. And then later I see that was the case. Come on then, talk us through the bit.
That's why he was there, because he knew I had money on him. He was like, Daniel, I've got you, son. Don't worry.
Back in the 11 and making you dough. Fantastic.
Exactly. So yes, he's always 33-1. So I always put a couple of pound on him, so I get about 70 back. However, I put £1 on Suter because it was his birthday. So I was like, that would be nice. But then, obviously, he didn't play and it voided it. So I put the extra £1 on. So it was £3 on 33-1. So I got £99. Well, actually, I got 102 because I got my bet back. So
who was that with?
Bet 365.
365, you have well and truly mugged yourselves off.
I've
given that void bet.
I've got about 600 quid off them since the start of the championship season, all through Michael Smith and one Armand Nandwale double.
This is what I was going to ask. With regards to Michael Smith, I think I heard Laurie say that it's his 6th goal for Hearts. How many of these have been first goal scorers? Because you've made an absolute
all of them. All of them.
Well, this is the thing, because I can recall an equaliser against Wraith Rovers at Bayview.
I didn't put money on that.
No, but the others, I'm fully convinced that the other remaining 5 have genuinely been first goal scorers.
I can't remember them all, but I remember the Motherwell one, which was a raker.
In the cup. Yeah.
Dundee at home.
You go.
Dundee at home, yes. Championship. I think he scored first against Ayr as well that last season at home, the 5-3 game. Right? I'm pretty sure he scored first, and Kingsley scored the free kick. The weekend, I can't remember the 5th one.
That's one that we should have done our research before
I
coming
know,
on here.
but
it was only when I thought of that Rovers one, I was like, hold on a second. Have the other 5 actually all come as first goals?
yes, they have.
That must be such a rarity.
Yes, they have, Adam, and I have bet on every single one of them, and they've come in. However, so obviously I was delighted with the goal in general because of that. But for me, that's goal of the season so far.
It was a great goal.
It beats Kingsley's free kick last week, in my opinion, because of the build-up. I don't mean just the hit. I mean the drop.
Sorry, mate. Talking about that Kingsley free kick, I don't know whether you watched the Sunday sports scene. Did you see Stephen Naismith trying to put it forward for goal of the month? Stephen Thompson was having none of it. I love Naisy. Love Naisy.
It was so great.
Sorry to cut you off. I had to drop that in there.
No, it's all right. It's the drop of the shoulder from Mackay is incredible. It just, honestly, that first half, he had that left back completely. I think he went past him 8 times.
I wonder who said to Hearts that they should sign Barry Mackay.
You're not doing this.
Whoever put that idea forward, they must really know their ball.
Right. If it's the same person that suggested Andy Halliday, they probably don't. So we're 50-50. It cancels each other out so far.
I'd argue I've got a 66% success rate.
Because of GMS.
Because of GMS. I'll slide that in there.
Right.
But in all seriousness, Barry Mackay was excellent, wasn't he?
I think he will have felt hard done by alongside Devlin and Cochrane. If any of them hadn't got man of the match, they'll feel hard done by. Because Barry Mackay was involved in all 3 goals, as was Cochrane. The turn's amazing. The cross is actually, initially, as soon as he hit it, I went, he's overhit that. But then I looked and saw Cochrane was completely unmarked. And I'm like, I actually think he's aiming for Cochrane, who just...
Genuinely the perfect weight, isn't it? Yeah. Which is one of them, like you say, you kind of initially think, it's one of those that I think it just shanks out of play like 9-10 times. It eventually just trickles and bobbles off the ground or whatever. But it genuinely is inch perfect. And the volley back from Alex Cochrane, it's so beautiful.
Good. It's so good. And then the hit from Smith is genuinely incredible. Like and as you said, weak foot as well. Like it's just unbelievable. And
gorgeous goal.
What a way, by the way, to in all factors, shut up critics. Because people were like, I don't know if he should be in the team because he can't play a wing-back role. That shut everybody up with how well he played. Then people going, I don't know if he gets forward enough because he's quite defensive. Well, he was on the fucking penalty spot. Then, I don't know if he's...
Obviously taking fans' comments to heart, isn't he?
Exactly! Then going, I don't know if he's a goal scorer. Then having goal of the season so far. That's why he went like that. It wasn't to Motherwell fans. It was to us. Going, right, come on then.
Yeah, and you know what? He had an effort later on in the first half.
Oh my God, it was right on half time.
Is it Barry Mackay chased it down even?
Yes.
And he just smashes one, and I just watched the highlights like, oh my God.
It's like the best volley I've ever seen.
And I know, listen, we're both massive Michael Smith fans, but even I was going, Jesus Christ, like what a return from, injury and whatnot, worth the wait. Crazy. Obviously worth the wait in the 90 minutes for that goal, given the supposed sluggish start. But how good is it to have the main man, Mick, back in the equation? What a player.
I just love him. I love him so much. Please do not get hurt on Northern Ireland duty again. Because it happened last time. Fucking stay fit.
Yeah, the Green and White Army have a lot to answer for.
Yes, exactly.
But of course, then kind of, I don't know, 5-10 minutes after we open the scoring, Ben Woodburn sends in a wicked free kick after the goal, looks for Craig Halkett, who also has a chance second half to score against his former employers. Yeah. I see a lot of criticism with regards to Craig Halkett still. I have been, don't want to say too critical. We picked up on his Parkhead performance, everybody knows. But in terms of improvement and one of our better players this season, I think Halkett's really gone under the radar, to be honest. And I think the change of shape's the best thing to have happened to him. Obviously, John Souttar coming back, like we've said, was, again, another massive factor as to why he's been brilliant for us. And I thought that he was actually pretty unlucky to not find himself on the score sheet against Livy, like I say.
He's been our most improved player so far this season, and he's been probably... I know I agree with you when you say that Kingsley is probably our most underrated player. in general. However, I think Halkett this season has been our most underappreciated player.
He could easily fit into that bracket, couldn't he?
Mm-hmm, definitely. And I think
just with this season's performances. Anyway.
Yes, exactly. And that's the big thing. This past weekend really proved it to me because Suter wasn't there. And it was like...
And still coped admirably.
Yeah.
And look, I know that we've got to take into account the opposition.
Yes, of course.
Harped on about Livingston, that they will get relegated and that they didn't pose much of a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's been just emblematic of his season so far. Sorry to drop that in there yet again. But
sure enough that you know the word now.
Yes, only taking me 20 years. But yeah, I think he's been one of our better performers. Despite, everybody harps on about the midfield, me and Benny Beningame in particular, the front three, the interchanging and whatnot. But yeah, Halkett deserves a bit more praise in my eyes.
Listen, Halkett obviously got brought off with a concussion sub at the weekend, and it brought an end to the fact that he has played every single minute of the last 50 games. Yes,
I couldn't believe that.
A lot of games of him, right? People would rightly criticise his performance. We ourselves have done that. However, you can't be such a mainstay of that squad when we have just been on a continual upturn, particularly this season, and not deserve your place in that. And he has been. I've been very, very impressed with him this season. And what a time to do it when your contract's expiring at the end of the season and you need to try and earn a deal.
It's funny you mentioned that previous 50 games. I now notice that we've equalled our home wins tally and general wins tally from the last time that we were in the Premiership after 7 games.
Yep.
So that's essentially less than a quarter of the 30 games that we last played in the top tier. So if you ever need any case as to why Hearts and Craig Halkett have improved so drastically, the proof's in the pudding. There you go, right there. Four wins from 7 games as opposed to 4 wins from 30, and 2 Tynecastle victories. Like, does anybody actually realise how honking we were the last time that we were in the Premiership?
I think every good result we get this year is really compounding it.
Yeah. The disappointment of dropping 2 points, but yet when we actually win, it's just such a nice feeling again to be winning matches in the Premiership. Wow, what a novelty!
Exactly.
But a key part as to why we are winning these matches is none other than another Northern Irishman, Liam Boyce, up front. Obviously, Hearts win a penalty on 33 minutes, and Benny Beningame and Cami Devlin, this is where the bromance brews. With winning the penalty, Beningame is eventually the one that draws the foul. Some nice footwork, let's say, from the pair of them in the penalty area before Beningame is brought down. Blatant pen, isn't it?
Oh, of course. He just studs him in the ankle.
And I don't know why Livy protest. Boise steps up, tucks it away, 9 goals, 12 games. I don't want to jinx things, but there's a lot of talk being compared to a legendary ex-striker. I'll say no more than that. You get what I'm alluding to here. Mm-hmm. Could he?
Well, this is the thing, right? Liam Boyce is the best striker we've ever seen play for this club. That's a fact. He's better than De Vries. He's better than Jankowskis. He's better than Lafferty. He's better than Bednar. I know Bednar wasn't really a striker.
Kyle and Elliott.
Yes, definitely.
BT.
Yeah, of course. BT's hard because he had 4 games.
David Witteveen, Jamie Mole.
Callum Elliott. He's on levels with Callum Elliott. That's who I'll put him on.
David Abua, Christian Nadi.
I was just about to say Abua. Abua was literally the best I was going to say. But of the actual...
We've seen some right shite over the years, haven't we?
But then also, Osman Sow and stuff like that.
I've loved Osman Sow.
So... Boyce is. I should have bet on this because as he stepped up, my brother went, he's going down the middle, and I went, he's going to go middle, bottom, right, and it was exactly where the ball went. And my brother just looked at me and was like, "What is your luck today?"
Middle, bottom, right.
Yeah,
what do you mean?
He didn't put it right in the corner. Yeah, he didn't put it right in the corner. It was in between the right hand side and the middle. Listen, he's just been on fire. He said on this very podcast a few weeks ago. His
Don't
target
check
is...
that out. Great
Yep,
work.
exactly. His target is 10 by Christmas. He's got to hit it within the next 2 games.
Oh, don't tempt fate. Jesus. I don't like this.
He now goes on a 14-game barren run.
We know exactly what's happening here. You know, we sent this clip a couple months down the line. I didn't say it. It was Sully McIver's words. I'm sorry, Boise. I'm sorry that you've now gone on this run. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I believe in him.
As long as you bag the winner on Saturday, that's fine.
Yes, exactly.
There's your target, and we'll forgive you.
But just incredible. Joel Sked shared a thing where on the comparisons to that legendary striker, it was an article in the Evening News, and someone replied on Facebook. It was a genuine point because they kept arguing about it in the comments that Boyce should barely be on the bench. He doesn't do enough in games.
Because we've got so many more options up front, and I'm looking at the bench thinking Nandwile could come on. Yeah, we've talked about, Nandwile coming on and changing the complexion of the game, and literally nobody else.
You can play an out of position Josh Chinelli, Jamie Walker, Gary Mackay-Steven, but they're out of position.
There's so many options.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Like
some nonsense that folks speak. And I know that's rich coming from us, Pierre, but
I know, exactly. It is a bit like
actually starting to make us think that we're not that bad.
I know. This is the thing. This is how you should always live your life. If you're about to say something, and in your head you go, could Daniel and Adam make fun of this? You're probably not saying it. Because if we can mock it, it must be a nightmare take. Because some of the stuff we've come out with...
Have your backup, kids. Preparation is key. I'm telling you.
But just Boyce is incredible. I've seen so many people be like, oh, well, he wouldn't be top goal scorer if he is this season if it wasn't for penalties. Well, he's tied with Martin Boyle, who scored basically every goal, him with penalties as well. Penalties exist in football. I've never understood that argument where it's like, oh,
it's one of my biggest pet hates. He's still got to tuck it away.
Exactly.
How many missed pens have we seen? We saw Jason Cummings miss his at the weekend.
Exactly. It's just ridiculous.
I'm delighted you said that.
It's a stupid argument. But even if you took away the penalties, it's like, right, fine, I'll even give you that. He's been outstanding in basically every game he does because it's his all-round game. Speaking to a Hibs fan that I know in my work who was saying the same as what we've said, what a lot of Hearts fans have said. Before he came to us, there was this image of Liam Boyce that he was just a poacher, goal hanger, like that's all he did. But when you actually watch him, it's so different. His all-round game is outstanding. He didn't have a lot to do in terms of actual that kind of stuff with his goal on Saturday. Obviously, it was a penalty, but it's another thing. I was saying that to my dad, actually. Barring Sean Clare in recent years, I can't think of such a reliable penalty taker that we've had.
You're always confident when he steps up, aren't you? And I think this is something else. I don't even feel as though he was on his best or at his best on Saturday, and he still bags. So I don't want to hear folk chatting about, I can't believe that folk would question if he doesn't actually do enough. My criticism last season was that he wasn't getting enough service. Now he's got the service, doesn't have to perform to his best every week, and can still pop up with goals.
51 games.
And folk will still criticise.
51 games, 26 goals, 14 assists.
That's a phenomenal record.
That's unbelievable.
Literally what, 1 in 2, better than 1 in 2, and that's that's the aim for every striker, isn't it, to have that magic 1 in 2. But first half comes to a close after Michael Smith's thunderous effort that we previously alluded to. Livingston didn't really do a lot. There was a ball that Jason Holt sent into the box that's begging to be stabbed home, but considering they'd just beaten Celtic. They did set their stall out, but surely he'd come with a little bit more ambition, no? And I know that David Martindale talked about afterwards that they'd gone to Ibrox in midweek in the League Cup, that they'd had Celtic, the previous weekend. But still, it just offered nothing. This is why I don't like them. They offer nothing with their stadium, their fans, the club in general. They try, why not try and have a go and make it somewhat of a spectacle? But no, you're holding on for at best a point. Embarrassing.
That was the thing. There was 80 Livy fans there because they
obviously. It's a shambles, mate. It's a disgrace. You contribute nothing to the Scottish game. I'm sick of saying it.
Are Livy the only club that don't get at least half the Rosebud in the week?
No, I can't imagine that Ross County would bring down a fair one.
Oh, I forgot about Ross County. Because I was like, Dundee
talk about
do.
St Johnstone a fair bit as well. I don't think St Johnstone.
No, but they still get it. Yeah. I don't know if they sell it, but they get it. But Livy only had the final strip of the Rose one closest to Section M, and there was about 80 folk there. But yeah,
they've had their time, man. These clubs come up and stay for too long. Like Aki's are another.
In fairness, I will say this though, and
there's something to be admired about them staying.
No, not that.
Proving the doubters wrong. But
not that. It's that I think we'd be called not hypocritical, but it would be funny for us because it's like if you don't like them, beat them. And for so many years, we've not done that.
No, that's what I mean in terms of proving the doubters wrong, and they'll nick the odd result here and there, but really for the most part.
Yeah, it's been annoying that they've been here, but they've been here, I guess you could argue, on merit.
Yeah, no, listen, they've got to earn it, and they have done, but stay for like a season or two. Come on, you're taking the piss now.
They were atrocious. They were absolute. I really disagreed with some people being like, yeah, we were good, but is it because they were rubbish? But it's like, no, because we made them that bad. They were bad. Listen, the Livingston, I think you're right. I think, obviously, we've still not had the full round of fixtures yet. We're a few weeks away from that, but
they're in bother.
They're in real trouble. They're in real trouble, and
yet they still beat Celtic.
I know exactly.
Massive fan of that. In fact, I take back everything I said. Just keep them in the league, just to rob those points off Celtic every year. That'll do me.
We were fantastic. That first half, especially. Obviously, when you're 2-0 up against Livingston, the points are in the bag. Then, it makes sense that the second half we weren't as free flowing, we weren't as attacking. We only scored 1 instead of 2 and stuff like that. And we I'll get to it in a bit because this wasn't in the highlights, so you won't have seen it. The final 5 minutes, we just started taking the piss, and it was so funny. Obviously, that's going to happen. But we made them that bad. We made them sit in that deep. When in the second half, I can't remember when it was, they had one shot on target and it P-rolled towards Craig Gordon, and most of the new stand stood up and applauded it.
Terrible. Terrible. I had them to finish 12th for a reason. So
you had Aberdeen to finish 5th.
Fifth.
Aye.
Yeah. You even said that at the weekend. That looks generous now, doesn't it?
I know.
But yeah, first half, comprehensive. Did catch the 90, so by then the game's done. But there were a couple opportunities in the second half. Yep. Stephen Kingsley, unlucky not to bag a second free kick in as many weeks.
Can we just speak about that a minute? Because everybody in the ground thought it was a penalty.
Well, okay, because I was going to tie in, Ben Woodburn has the initial free kick, which strikes Andrew Shinnie, which is what you're going to touch on. When I was watching it, looked back and actually thought he was pretty fortunate to stay on the park. There was a challenge on Stephen Kingsley in the first half, which was a shocker, and he escaped any form of punishment. So then that would have equated to his first booking, and we've obviously mentioned Jamie McCart's sending for St Johnstone. So surely then that second yellow from the handball would have seen him sent off, but that wasn't the case. What were you going to say with regards to?
So the Hearts Twitter thought it was a penalty. Everybody in the stadium thought it was a penalty because the ref, so it's right on the line. Where the wall is right on the line. So they jump. The ref blows his whistle and doesn't immediately point for a free kick. I think Obalai is annoyed at it. And Obalai was standing in in front of the penalty spot. So I think the ref points at Obalai. And it made everybody go, he's given a penalty. So we all celebrated. But then it was like, yeah, what's that?
Enjoyment short-lived.
They kind of stepped back a bit. But then Kingsley really walked forward and Boyce went over to get the ball. So fans started going, it's a penalty. And then the wall lined up and it was like, what is going on?
It wouldn't be like the officials to have an absolute nuke. I mean, we mentioned the around the grounds. I think you could list at least one poor refereeing decision from every game at every ground. Yeah. It's just sick of talking about officials, man. Honestly, they're actually horrendous. And again, we mentioned the Kingsley free kick initially. Great strike. Does everything right. Again, aiming for that top left-hand corner, but it was actually a decent save from
It was.
From Max Stryjek. But he also makes another save, I think 10 minutes later, as Barry Mackay is presented with a glorious chance to grab his first goal for the Jambos. Ayo Obalai, I mean, that signing, even talking about how honking Livingston are, they'd have seen how decent he was for Queen of the South as a holding midfielder. And yet when I write up the previews, they play him at centre-half, where he was shit. And we saw that in the Championship last season. So, crazy. But a slack back pass from him. Barry Mackay nips in as a result. Looks to dink Stryjek. Does he do everything right? Is it just a good save?
I think it's a great save.
Because I don't know whether he ought to keep it on the deck and kind of drill one across him. I don't know.
I think that would have been really hard to do. His logic is, this keeper's going to run and slide. So if I get this over him, it's in.
It's in, yeah. Yeah, that's probably fair.
Can I just say,
I was just intrigued to gain your thoughts.
See in that moment, Barry Mackay is fast as fuck. And it really showed in that moment. Like, I was like, oh, he's quite fast, like, in the first half.
Back pass, but it still looked as though it would eventually trickle, didn't it?
It just, like, it's from a standing start as well. It's not like he's at pace. Like, he's just walking along, not expecting anything, and then just immediately.
And when we've had a look at players that come in and question their fitness, you know, signing as that free agent, there's obviously the question marks with regards to fitness, sharpness. Again, looks as though he's up to speed already, which is fantastic. What a signing. I mean,
listen, as I said, right, I had no expectations going in because I just didn't know who he was. I just had no experience of him. So it's kind of like, he was like Cochrane, where it was like, I don't know what to expect from you. Looking forward to seeing what you can do. I've been so impressed with him. He's probably been our best winger.
And it's funny that you mention Alex Cochrane, because Barry Mackay makes up for said miss with a lovely inviting ball off the right-hand side. It's decent hold-up play, I think, from Armand Nondoué.
And he does a wee flick. He does a wee flick in behind as well.
This is what I was going to ask. Is it a ricochet or is it a flick? Because, again, I maybe need to see it. I maybe need to see another angle and whatnot. But from Jordan, I think, who is, you know, the videographer, friend of the show, I'm assuming it's his video. From that angle, I mean, it's a ridiculous ball from Barry Mackay. How he sees that, I've got no idea. Flashes it across goal, and there's Alex Cochrane, who you've touched on. Rushes to stab home. You know, 3 goals, 3 points, job done. Again, another fantastic goal. The 2 goals from open play were sensational, and Barry Mackay involved in both. Alex Cochrane involved in both. What a wee duo.
I was so happy for him. He went mental. He didn't know what he'd do because I didn't realise it was his first goal ever in professional football. I thought it was just his first goal for us. But
that's what we can give you, people. There you go. Moments like that, magic moments like that. Get that in your recruitment video, Joe Savage.
He was, honestly, I think Alex Cochrane has been the most underrated signing we've made this season, because, like, obviously taking the headlines have been people like Berry, Devlin in that game, Barry Mackay and Woodburn look really exciting, stuff like that.
It's always the attacking players, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Defenders never get any credit.
I know they don't, and it always makes me sad. So I'm sticking up for defenders here. But Cochrane is just, honestly, I just don't think Cochrane's put a foot wrong so far, and especially at the weekend. As I said, him, Devlin and Mackay all had arguments to be man of the match. Cochrane was so good. He just handled everything. I will just want to say, I'll just mention them here because it's similar. I gave Taylor Moore a bit of a hard time last week because I felt that against Ross County he wasn't great. I did say at the time, I was like, I'll give you the caveat that it was his debut from the start and he was out of position. I thought Taylor Moore was exceptional at the weekend in his natural centre-half position. There was a moment where, I'll say it now because it was in the final 10 minutes, Taylor Moore does a Rabona switch out to Nandwilly, who chests it down to Devlin, who roulettes out past his defender, then, like, back heels it to Kingsley, who chips it over the defender to Cochrane, who just puts it wide. It was like the
liquid footballing Gorgie.
It was like the 88th minute, and it was the best passenger play I think I've ever seen from a Hearts team. And it started with a Rabona cross for Taylor Moore, a centre half.
How ironic is it that it's the best passage play we've ever seen from a Hearts team and didn't result in anything?
Yeah, exactly. But there was another one like that. Nandwilly had a shot over the bar that was miles over. But the passenger play was great. It was so nice.
Tricks and flicks, I think Wood burns at the heart of it and eventually gives him it back. But yeah, that was kind of the final chance, really, wasn't it? I was thinking while you were harping on about Alex Cochrane there. Scarves Around the Funnel recently had Jamie McDonald on, and they were talking about the goalkeepers union. Is this now you essentially
Defenders Union?
Defenders Union.
Defenders Union, it absolutely is. I will say also
with Cochrane and Moore.
You said that it was the last chance. It wasn't, and it's bollocks because
when he's played clean through,
he's in.
Whistle goes.
What is the ref doing there? You hear the stadium go, "Oh, that's such a shame," because he's so.
It wasn't just Nando that was raging. Yeah.
Gutted for him.
Yeah, no, I did find that quite amusing when I watched the full 90 back, but yeah, just absolutely delighted. You know, I wanted a comprehensive victory over Livingston. I wanted us to batter them. I've got to be honest, didn't see it coming. And like I say, delighted with the clean sheet first and foremost. 3 goals, fantastic. Equaled the win tally. Positives are plenty. And I genuinely was so pleased. It made my weekend.
Can we speak about him now? Now? Right.
Go on.
Here's a statement and a half.
Oh, no. Not another one.
Cami Devlin's debut was the best debut for a Hearts player I have ever seen in the flesh.
Tynecastle debut. Because it obviously made his debut, technically speaking, at County.
But like starting debut.
Yes, his first start.
Yes. Best start I've ever seen in the flesh.
I was trying to think. I was thinking Mark De Vries was his first start.
I wasn't there though. I wasn't there.
No, of course. I noticed that you've chucked in the flesh to obviously,
Yeah, I had to be there.
It to solely Devlin.
Yeah.
But
I will also say, here's another big statement. It was better than Benny's debut.
Right, well, I'm going to chuck out adverts for a podcast partner. Anybody that's watching this and fancies a gab with the Gorgie every week, you know what's good. Fire me a tweet, email, any of that shenanigans, drop me a message. That is a ridiculous statement. How very dare you?
You weren't there. You didn't see it, right? Honestly.
Sorry. Some of us have to work. I'm raging. Literally, the weekend, I've put in to work 4 o'clock till 11 in the morning on Saturday. Then I'm coming straight up to go to the game, catch up with Motherwell mates beforehand, get a couple pints. So I swear to God, Hearts, if you do not replicate that performance, you will find one angry fan. I don't even care if we scrape a win. I want a fully comprehensive performance. You lot owe me. The last journey I made up from here was the derby. And look how that turned out. That's why I was raging. It was nothing to do with the fact that, either side could have nicked it. It's just a 4-hour round trip for what? That.
Right, listen. Benny Beningame has been outstanding, flawless, everything, right?
He is the greatest player that I've ever seen. I don't know how many times I've got to tell you
but this is the thing.
Why you still question
You've not seen Cami play yet in the flesh, right?
I actually haven't. That's bizarre. It is. Can I just say, we were talking about Craig Halkett and the lack of action. Mm-hmm. I hate when Hearts are at home and not being there. It's so weird. It feels wrong. I genuinely can't. If you weren't there, I can't explain how good he was because I can't remember the last time I've seen a Hearts player. Generally, never mind in his debut, just generally run about from the first minute to the 90th minute and every run he made be influential. Because you get some people who just run about a lot and you're like, and look busy and they're not doing anything. Yeah.
Devlin, he had something like 148 touches of the ball and 98% pass accuracy. He went up for 6 aerial duels and despite being 4'6", won 5 of them.
He's never a Hearts player in a million years.
There was another moment. It happened, like I said, in the Ross County game where he tracked back and made a challenge. He saved us from conceding at the only time I was like, oh, they've got an overlap here. It was the 55th minute. We were comfortable. And then they broke, and it was a complete 3-on-2. I think Kingsley and Moore had both pushed up for a corner, a free kick, or a throw-in. And it was just Halkett and Devlin. They then broke, and Devlin, like, about 4 seconds before the Livy guy played the ball, Devlin starts sliding and just kept sliding and connects with the ball and sends it flying. He then gets immediately back up because it's landed at Jason Holt's feet. Does another sliding challenge through Jason Holt, gets the ball, traps it before it goes out, and then plays it off Holt and it goes out for a throw-in. That got a standing ovation from Section N. The entirety of Section N stood up and gave him a full-on standing ovation.
I feel as though we've got to kind of talk about the elephant in the room with regards to Cami Devlin. So, as a lot of you will know, I work for WhoScored.com by doing their Scottish Premiership.
I didn't want to mention this, right? I didn't want to mention this.
I feel as though we've got to. I know that you wouldn't, but I feel as though we've got to. And needless to say, I do the previews and the previews only. So when I tweet out the team of the week, don't fire your abuse at me.
I feel so bad for you.
No. Do you know what? It's part and parcel of the job. That's fine. I can accept that. I'm merely, trying to build contacts. Ryan Edwards, the Dundee United centre half, has followed me back on Twitter as a result. So
it's worked out. It's worked out.
And Dundee United actually quote tweeted me the other day, which was great. So that's nice. But it's trying to raise my general profile by tweeting out the team of the week because it attracts a lot of controversy. Cami Devlin was rated the second best Scottish Premiership player at the weekend. He was 0.05 rated worse than Jota, the Celtic winger. Again, absolute disgrace. He had a decent game, but so what? Celtic dropped points at home to Dundee United. Our only representative was Cami Devlin, which again, you've highlighted 3 or 4 players that could have easily made that team. So that highlights how decent he actually was on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in the flesh. Honestly, it's long overdue. And
he was just so good. Yeah. And he was also, it was that thing that you said.
Don't know what else there is to say. Stop firing me abuse. I'm sorry. You can fire me abuse for the previews if I get the scores wrong. I can accept that. Scores are tricky to gauge. It's a hard job. It's easy doing all the team news and the writing and all this shit, but actually trying to predict the score is solid.
Adam's shooting now.
No, I've got to comfort people, mate, because this annoys me. It's not my doing. It's other people that are making these ratings. Had it been up to me, Benny Beningame would get a 10 every week, and he'd be Scottish Premiership Player of the Season. But he's not. So, just take it easy. And yes, Cami Devlin was exceptional. I'm not disputing that. And I would make the case for several Hearts players. That's all I'm trying to say. But he was brilliant.
He was exceptional. And it was that thing that you said right at the start of this episode. He was just delighted. He was just everything he did. As I said, when Cochrane scored, everybody was like, yes, Taylor Moore was really buzzing with him. Devlin ran, and it was his first game at home, and picked up Cochrane and was just like turning to the crowd, celebrating. He was the last person on the park, applauding everybody. He went round every stand, clapping. And he's also just great. I love him. He's Paul Hartley. He's the new Paul Hartley.
This is where both he and the club know exactly what they're doing. They say that a first impression is everything. Cami Devlin wants to get the fans on side because he's not daft. He knows that he's got to, work his bollocks off and ultimately appease the supporters that are paying his wages. And the club are smart because that tweet that they put out with regards to find you someday the way that Cami Devlin looks at everybody, they know exactly that they want to feed in and make him a fan's favourite if it adds on to his value for resale or whatever. So, do you know what? We're in a great place. Both Cami Devlin, the entirety of the playing squad, Heart and Midlothian on the whole. It's so nice to be talking about our football club.
How weird is it? We were saying this before we went on air, and how people have been tweeting us that it's weird hearing us just in uniform agreement. We've managed to somehow have an argument about who's better, Devlin or Beningame, but we've got the best
that's
midfield
a poll
two.
That's going to emerge. 100%.
Yeah, we've got the best midfield two since Xavi and Iniesta. So there's going to be debates between it. But just
massive fan of that tweet. I think it was at Connor HMFC with the specs and cleaning them off. And there's Xavi and Iniesta and those two. Oh, sensational, man. Brilliant.
Incredible.
And you'll get to see Xavi and Iniesta do their thing this coming Saturday as we host Motherwell at Tynecastle. Third meets fourth. Big game, even so early on in the season. And I think it'll be right up there in terms of the trickiest tests that we've encountered because the Steelmen are just in fine form. I'm going to chat with a Motherwell mate actually previewing this game. So I'll send out the link to that on Twitter and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to getting a chat with Stevie. But his team are flying. Unbeaten in 6 league matches, haven't lost since the opening day in the league, despite being knocked out of the Premier Sports Cup by Dundee. But looking at their fixtures since the loss to Hibs, like I say, at Fir Park, claimed a point at McDermott Park in a 1-1 draw with St Johnstone, won away at Livy, coming from behind by 2-1, edged out Dundee at home 1-0, beat Aberdeen pretty comfortably 2-0 at Fir Park again, claimed a point at Ibrox, which is another fixture that's got me worried, given we play Rangers after the international break. Everybody knows I'm not a fan of the international break, and it potentially ruining Hearts' mojo. And of course, their win over County at the weekend with Tony Watt's late winner. So, what are we anticipating from Motherwell, mate? Because, like I say, I've had a couple chats with pals, Motherwell mates. Callum Slattery in midfield has obviously earned rave reviews. Bagged his first goal at the weekend with a stunning strike. The front three are terrifying me. Yeah. You know, the boy Woolery looks really good as the winger. Big Van Veen up front. I know he's turned into something of a cult hero already. And given how his Hearts career transpired, it would be so typical of Tony Watt to equal or better his Heart Midlothian tally at the weekend, having obviously scored once that winner away at Partick Thistle. This is quite scary, and I didn't think Motherwell at home would be a scary match.
It's scary is the best word to say it, because they have started in a way that I think some people might have thought they would, but I think the majority of people expected them to have a fine start. Like, there was clearly teams worse than them in the league. There was clearly teams better than them in the league. They were probably going to be around 6th or 7th, maybe 5th at a push.
It was the Premier Sports Cup, I think, that placed a lot of doubt, isn't it? They weren't exactly convincing against lower league sides. They obviously lost their derby to Airdrie, where your mate Scott McGill scored an absolute worldie. Yeah. And I think that then placed a lot of concerns in the fans' heads.
I remember watching that game, actually, because I wanted to see how McGill did, and just being like, Motherwell got to show nothing this season. They looked really bad. They obviously got beat, as you said, by Hibs opening day of the season. And I was like, yep, this is it. They've got to be in the round.
That was encouraging, though, I think. Prior to their initial performances, they actually looked as though they had a bit about them in the Hibs game, and were on another day maybe could have taken, a point or all three.
That's very fair.
But it was a stuttering start, like you say, and now they just look as though they've clicked into gear. The signings are performing well, like I say.
We just need to attack Stephen O'Donnell.
So you're saying that Barry Mackay / Ben Woodburn will be effectively the match winner?
Yes, I just need us to... I think that should be the focus, because they've got a really good spine, which I think when Motherwell have been good in recent years, they've always had a good spine. Other teams can get away with, not being amazing in the middle of the park, but having really good players in the fringes and going, they're not going to do much through the middle, but they'll get a cross in or something like that.
And Alan Campbell was their big loss, and obviously then they signed, I think, the boys Slattery now, kind of toward the end of their Premier Sports Cup campaign, and now he's got up to speed. Looks a really good capture, and his goal at the weekend was a superb strike.
Oh, it was outstanding. And it
two
was
great goals again, because but Tony Watt, that's exactly what we'd anticipated that we were getting. Lets it run on through, and it's very similar to his Barca goal. He won't thank me for saying that, but across the keeper into the bottom corner, great goal.
Very similar opposition as well.
Of course, undoubtedly.
I think, listen, obviously...
Up against Benny Beningame and Cami Devlin that night. Who can we forget?
So, I think it's going to be hard. I think we're going to really need to be on it. We're going to have arguably our best performance of the season if we want to get a win. But saying all of that, Motherwell fans will be nervous coming to us, because technically, not technically, just factually, we've been better. Like, from a points perspective, we are above them. It's not that we're tied on points. I know there's only like a point between it. It's not exactly like we're 5 points clear. But we are a good side now. It's been a long time since we've been able to say that, but we are a good side now. And worse sides have beaten Motherwell. Better sides have lost to Motherwell.
But equally, they've had worse sides coming to Tiny, and maybe better sides coming to Tiny. So,
I remember that the last time I remember it was a proper good game between us was DiCamona's debut in the Cup.
League Cup tie.
Yeah.
Brilliant. What a night that was.
That was fantastic. And I think an atmosphere similar to that will be prevalent on Saturday because both teams are absolutely flying. Like, it's not like a Livy Hearts where there's barely any fans and then those fans are downfalling. They're not happy with the way the teams are. I know Livy had just beaten Celtic, but they've been beating off Rangers and then they've not been doing great in the league generally.
They'll bring a decent travelling support, and I know a lot of my pals are really looking forward to it. I think Tiny is always an appealing ground to come to anyway. But when your side's performing so well, usually when Hearts are toiling, you'd feel a bit more confident. But with us actually in decent form, it's set up to be a great clash. I'm really looking forward to it.
I think it'll be a really good game. However, I do worry that it could be a situation where if we don't get off to a good start, as we've been saying, there has been a few times this season where we've been off to a slow start. Notably,
will inevitably arrive, and everybody needs to kind of settle down. Yeah.
So hopefully we kind of just, at least if we don't get off to a flyer, we just don't concede. We grow into the game and then start playing our game. If we can play our game, I'm confident.
I'll ask you for team selection and a score before we round up.
I would play the exact same team that started against Livingston, barring if Suter is fit, I would swap him in for Moore. I don't think Moore put a foot wrong. However,
I was going to say it's pretty harsh, given you've been.
It probably is, but Suter's been consistently better. Like,
but John Suter is different gravy.
Yeah, he's John Suter. Yeah. However, I will say this. Well, maybe because also the other one thing with Moore is he wasn't really challenged, so we haven't seen him up against anything. So the potential worry is, what if Tony
Watt up against Van Veen and Woolery and
stuff like
Watt
that
dropping into the pockets? Yeah,
that could be a worry. And my score prediction.
Do you gamble in a big game like this?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'd put Suter back in.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
And then my score prediction, unlike the Edinburgh Derby, where I thought it's going to be all this patter, it's not going to live up to it. I actually think it is going to live up to it, but I'm going to go with the same result I gave against Hibs. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw.
Ooh. I'm also going with a draw.
Ooh.
I'm saying 1 each, planting that reverse psychology seed.
That's not how reverse psychology works. Because one, the audio listeners don't know what you just did there.
So get watching on YouTube.
Yes, exactly. And two, reverse psychology isn't just physically willing what you want to happen whilst saying another thing.
Every single week, I'm actually exposed for how stupid I am.
Right? Title of the episode, reverse psychology. That's what it is.
There was me thinking we'd get away with that for like Defenders Union or something, but that's great.
Oh no, Defenders Union is a good shout, actually. Anyway,
regardless of what it's called.
Exactly, it doesn't matter to you guys. Thank you, whatever it's called, for listening to the episode. Bit of a longer one this episode because we just had so much positive things to say. It's probably a rarity. It's probably not going to happen again, but we hope.
Particularly not when I'm hosting. Christ.
Yes, exactly.
Given the track record, I was like, yes, got plenty of material here. Big clash of the weekend to talk about. Yes, come on.
So, massive thank you. I hope you all enjoyed it as you are enjoying Hearts' performances on the park. But we have been Perth to Paisley. You can get us on all the socials at Perth to Paisley. It's below us on the YouTube version, and you can go there to get us if you're just listening. We're also perthtopaisley@gmail.com if you want to shoot us an email and ask a question or just have a random chat about stuff. Also, we're on YouTube, as I've just said. So please leave a like, subscribe. It massively helps. It boosts us in the rankings of football podcasts on that. And talking about that as well, please do leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice if you are listening to this. It's really helped us. We've seen in recent weeks that you guys have been leaving loads of reviews, and we really do appreciate that. They don't go unnoticed. If you ever leave a wee comment, we read them all. I send them to Adam, so we do see them. So we really do appreciate it. Adam, where can they get you on social media?
They can get me on all the socials at Adam T. Kendall. And what about yourself, mate?
I am at dmcIver22. We'll be back next week to discuss all the Motherwell fallout and any potential international stuff that we're going to speak about as well, and any other news that comes up. But until then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Come on the Hearts!